الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تبارك وتعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار اللهم أجرنا من النار. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him subhanahu wa ta'ala for the kindness and generosity, for the ni'mah of Islam, and for the ni'mah of being from the people that do fill the houses of Allah. الَّذِينَ يَعْمُرُونَ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ, the ones that fill the houses of Allah, as this is a tremendous ni'mah in of itself. There are many that call themselves Muslims that rarely go to the houses of Allah to pray or to listen to any lectures or to benefit in any way, shape or form. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say this, Allah sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a mercy to mankind. And subhanAllah, the mercy, Him being a mercy to mankind, we see in many aspects. Many aspects. First and foremost, Him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam being the tool to bring out many people in His time and after His time from the darkness of disbelief, the darkness of believing in false deities, the darkness of atheism and believing in false religions and ideologies, into the light of Islam. So billions from His time to our time, alhamdulillah, have been guided to Islam because of His teachings and because of Him being a mercy to mankind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this ummah with many mercies, Muhammad being the first one, and many of the things that Allah Ta'ala sent us as a tool to help us fulfill the reason for our creation. And what is the reason for our creation? What is the reason that we were created? Taymur? What is the reason for our creation? To worship Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. What is the proof? Put me on the spot there. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created jinn and mankind except so that they would worship me. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. I don't require from them any sustenance, nor do I require that they feed me. So obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create this universe in play and in jest, but He rather subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created this universe for a lofty wisdom, and that wisdom is for Him to be worshipped alone, and so that no partners will be taken with Him in worship. And for that worship to take place, Allah Ta'ala sent many tools our way. And from those tools, He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has chosen some periods of time, and He made them better than others. Allah Ta'ala has chosen, as Allah Ta'ala creates, and He chooses. يَخْلُقُ وَيَخْتَارُ. And subhanAllah, He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created the earth, and He made the best place in earth. On earth is what place? What is the best place on earth? Mecca. And He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala created the heavens, and He made the best place in the heavens Al-Jannah. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to make us from the dwellers of Al-Jannah. He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala created the creations, al-malaika, the angels, the jinn, and mankind, and He made the best one of them is who? Who's the best of the malaika first? Jibreel alayhi salam. And He created mankind, and He made the best of them. Well, first of all, the prophets and messengers, and then from that group of prophets and messengers, He made the messengers better than the prophets. Then He chose from the messengers 5 major ones, which are, I'm going to put you on the spot all night today. So get ready. Before Isa, chronological order. Musa, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they're called Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul. Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned them in the Quran. فَاصْبِرْ كَمَا صَبَرَ أُولُو الْعَزْمِ مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. The Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul is very difficult to translate this particular meaning into English or any other languages, but we call them the 5 major messengers. Some people call them the patriarchal messengers. Patriarchal messengers. So these are the best 5, and out of them He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala chose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, as He chose from His creations, when it comes to people and angels and places, He chose times, and He made them better than others. He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created 12 months in a year, and He made the 4 sacred months the best of all of them. He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala created and after the sacred months, He created Ramadan and made Ramadan one of the best months of the year. And He created the nights and made Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, the best of all nights. And He created the days and made the best days are, what are the best days? The 10 of Dhul Hijjah are the best days. So Allah Azza wa Jal, with His wisdom and His knowledge of the unseen, He chooses times and makes them better than others. What does that mean for us? Those are times of what they call al-maghnam. Al-maghnam. These are al-maghnam. They remind you of the word al-ghanima. Al-ghanima is the spoils of war. Al-ghanima, when they used to, the Sahaba used to battle with people, they will take their possessions as maghnam. But this is al-ghanim, the time of ghanima, the time where a person will have the opportunity to multiply his hasanat, opportunity to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, opportunity to have his sins expiated, as the Prophet ﷺ said, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, حديث أبي هريرة, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, صلوات الخمس والجمعة إلى الجمعة ورمضان إلى رمضان مكفرات لما بينهن إذا اجتنبت الكبائر. Prophet ﷺ said the 5 daily prayers and Ramadan and the Friday to Friday, Jum'ah to Jum'ah, and Ramadan to Ramadan are an expiation to the sins that come between them, as long as the major sins are stayed away from, are avoided. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال صلى الله عليه وسلم من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan out of Iman and ihtisab. How can you translate ihtisab? What's a good way to translate ihtisab? It's difficult to translate this word using another word. Ihtisab means that you count or you are expecting the reward from none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's ihtisab. Out of iman, out of faith, and expecting the reward from none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will have your sins, you will have a sin experience. Another hadith of Abu Hurairah, من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه ومن قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stands in salah in the month of Ramadan, all of the month of Ramadan, out of iman and expecting the reward from none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of his sins will be expiated. And whoever stands the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, out of faith, iman wa ihtisaba, غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. So these are all tremendous bounties from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the days that are on their way, the days that are coming inshallah ta'ala. Incidentally, a little story. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sitting with the Sahaba, and he told them about this warrior who carried his spear, this warrior from the Israelites, from Banu Israel, who carried his spear in the way of Allah, for the sake of Allah, for over 80 years. Over 80 years. So the Sahaba, أسقط في أيديهم, they almost felt depressed about it. Why? Because they are the followers, the Sahaba, the companions of the best of all messengers. And they want nobody to be better than them when it comes to deeds. But this is a tall order. Who is going to be able to carry his spear for the sake of Allah for 80 years? It's impossible to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to appease what they were going through, He revealed a surah. Who can tell me what that surah is? There you go. Good job. It was kind of tricky, but he got it. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. Tell the Sahaba, don't worry about the fact that you will live from 60 to 70 years maximum. You will never be able to reach what that person reached, doing good deeds or striving for the sake of Allah for over 80 years. I'm giving you one night that equals that and then some. Subhanallah. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. SubhanAllah. This night, subhanAllah, if you coincide with it and you stand for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do good deeds, it is as if you worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for over 83 years, which is 1,000 months. This is the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this ummah. But first of all, let's start with the terminology. As-siyam. What does it mean linguistically? لغة. ما معنى الصيام؟ غير صحيح. يا أهل الفلوجة. غير صحيح. What is الصيام? What does it mean linguistically? لغة. لغة. مش اصطلاحا لغة. Linguistically, what does it mean? Yeah, to abstain and to refrain. الامتناع والإمساك. الامتناع والإمساك. هذا الصيام. بس قال طعام. وهذا لون بكام. الصوم هو الامتناع عن الأكل والشرب. الصيام الإمساك والامتناع. ما شاء الله. الصيام or الصوم هو الإمساك والامتناع. To refrain or to abstain. What is the proof? ما هو الدليل? What is the proof? Where did you get that from? كتب عليكم الصيام؟ هذا ليس دليلا لنا في هذا الموقف يعني. يلا يا عماد. What is the دليل? سورة مريم. سورة مريم. إني فقولي فإما ترين من البشر أحدا فقولي إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا. Allah Azza wa Jalla said to Maryam, if you see any human being, say, I have vowed a fast to the Beneficent, to the Most Merciful, and I will speak to no mortal today. Meaning, فسبحان Maryam عليها السلام, Allah Azza wa Jalla told her to do a sawm, which is to refrain from something, and in this particular situation, to refrain from speaking to anyone. And subhanallah, العرب كانوا يستعملون هذه الكلمة كثيرا في أشعارهم. قال بعضهم خيل صيام وخيل غير صائمة. تكلمون عن صهيل الخيول. They use the word صيام in describing the horses that are. What is the sound that the horses make? Is it a hissing, or what do we call the noise that the horses make? The sahih, let's say in English. Come on. Is it a hissing, or? Well, you're people that grew up here, not me. Tell me. It's your language, not mine. Is it a hissing? Okay. Well, personally, I can't remember. If you can remember, tell me. But this is called a sahil in the Arabic language. So when the horses refrain from making the sound that they make, the Arabs say that they did siyam. They also use that for the sun. Salamat al-shams. What does it mean, salamat al-shams? When the sun comes to a complete stop, high noon, they call that siyam, because they refrain from moving, even though it's not the sun that is moving, but to them, the sun was moving and then it stopped. So the fasting, the siyam, was mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. Who can tell me the ayat? يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Let's stop with this ayah for a minute. يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Allah is addressing the believers, or you who believe. So, obviously, the siyam is ordained upon the ones that have believed. Why? Because without believing, without saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, without saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and you go on fast, do you get any reward for that? No, you don't. Any good deed that you do when it comes to the life of this world, benefiting other people, or any kind of deed that normally will get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you go and do it. You go and do it without having said La ilaha illallah. In the eyes of Allah, it is null and void. It means nothing. It means nothing. This is a rule. This is a rule. Because why do I mention this? Because I get this in questions a lot. Wow, these people, even though they're not Muslims, but they have good deeds and they do charity and they help other people and all of that. That's all good, that's wonderful, that's great. More power to them. But subhanAllah, do they get a reward? Do they get a reward from Allah for that? Do they get a reward? Yes, actually they do. But they get all their reward in the life of this world. Allah gives them wealth, He gives them good health, He gives them, they call that karma, they call that what goes around, comes around, all of that. The boomerang effect, things like that. But subhanAllah, it benefits them. It benefits them in the life of this world. Allah Ta'ala is just, He's fair. You do something good, Allah is going to reward you for it, regardless who you are and what you believe in. But they get their reward. They get their reward in the life of this world. But subhanAllah, without having said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, whatever good that you do in this life, you get nothing on the day of judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِنْ يَهُودِيٍّ وَلَا نَصْرَانِيٍّ سَمِعَ بِي وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِي إِلَّا وَدَخَلَ النَّارِ. There is not a Jew or a Christian that heard of me and did not believe in me, except that he will be from the people of the hellfire. This is a rule. This is a rule. You want to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safe on the day of resurrection, let there not be anything wrong with your tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, ya ayyuhal muwahhideen, or the ones that said La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, as it was ordained, the fasting was ordained upon you, as it was ordained upon the ones before you. Now here, we stop for a second. There are three opinions of the scholars. A group says, ثلاث آراء من العلماء. أولهم قال الذين من قبلكم أي المسيحيون أو النصارى. The first group says that this is referring to the Christians because they're the nations that came right before us, right? قال بعضهم البعض الثاني أو الفريق الثاني قال اليهود والنصارى. اليهود والنصارى. The second group of scholars said it is referring to both the Jews and the Christians because in general they're the ones that came before us. Now the third group said not only it is the Jews and the Christians, الفريق الثالث قال أنهم اليهود والنصارى ولكن الذي كتب عليهم أن يصوموا هو شهر رمضان. The third group said that not only is the Jews and the Christians, but what was ordained upon them to fast, not just any days or not any kind of fasting, but it was the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan, subhanAllah. What is the number of this month in the lunar calendar? What number is it? 7. يا حبيب الله يهديك. شو رقم الشهر؟
بالهجري؟
نعم بالهجري طبعا، ما بالفيومي. The 9th month. So Allah Ta'ala, He ordained upon all the nations that came before us because they in essence were Muslims as well. Their prophets came to call them to La ilaha illallah. Ya qawmi a'budu Allah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. All the nations that came before us, they were Muslims. Isa alayhi salam called to Islam, Musa alayhi salam called to Islam, Nuh alayhi salam called to Islam, Ibrahim called to Islam.
Well, however, at that time did they call it Islam?
Well, Islam is an Arabic word, and they spoke other languages. They had a way of expressing the idea. They had a way of expressing the idea. Because what is Islam? What is a good definition for Islam in English? To submit, to adhere, to surrender your will to the will of the one that created you, so that you may attain peace. Attain peace with yourself, with your surrounding, and with your Creator. So this is a good definition of Islam. So this action, every prophet or messenger before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did exactly that, and they were teaching their people exactly that, to practice al-Islam, because Islam is an action. It's not really a name, it's not a denomination, but it is an action. Assalamu alaikum. Hayallah al-Professor. Give al-Umur, inshallah. So this is an action, and this action, every person that really worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Adam alayhi salam all the way to Muhammad, that's exactly what they did. They did Islam. So, some of the scholars, like I said, they said that subhanAllah, not only the Jews and the Christians, but they were ordained to fast the month of Ramadan. But what happened? What happened? It was said that the Christians, well, let's start with the Jews because they were for the Christians. The Jews, they looked at it and said, a whole month? That's too much. Let's make it into a day. And they changed it into a day. What is the day that the Jews fast? Yom Kippur. Right? That's the day you guys are. Yeah.
Just one day?
One day. That's it. One day a year. They changed that into a day in a year. SubhanAllah. What did Allah say about them? يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه. يحرفون الكلمة من بعد مواضعه. This is what they do. وقولوا حنطة نغفر لكم خطاياكم. What did they say? They say حنطة. They changed the word. That's what they do. That's their specialty. Now the Christians, they were a little nicer. They were more pious than the Jews. What did they do? They said, you know, this 9th lunar calendar month, sometimes it comes in the winter, sometimes it comes in the summer. It makes it difficult to keep up. The summer is very difficult. You know, the days are long. The winter, it gets really cold. You're hungrier when you're cold. So let's find a way to change this, make it more convenient. SubhanAllah. Now that we live here, we understand that Christianity is all about convenience, isn't it? It's all about convenience. We go to the church one day, and we feel good about ourselves. If we're Catholic, we go and confess, and then we go do whatever balawi, do it, whatever you want, but you go and confess. You know, one day you feel good about yourself. Nothing, no harm, no foul, as they say, right? Convenience. So we're gonna take this month and put it in a month that is, that the weather is nice. So what is the weather the nicest in a year? In springtime. So we're gonna change this to springtime. But as a kafara, because we messed with the time, because we played with the time and changed it, as a kafara, you guys know what a kafara is? What is a kafara? To cover up? Yeah. In a way. It's good. Because the word actually cover comes from the word kafara yakfur, subhanAllah. But a kafara is to, I can't think of the word right now, subhanAllah. No, it's not a compensation. It's, for example, when for example, you swear an oath, and that oath does not come through, you don't follow up with it as a kafara. You have to fast 3 days, or it's one of the things that to feed the 10 masakin, and so on and so forth. This is a kafara. It will come to me. The word, the vocabulary will come to me. Incidentally, subhanAllah, all my studying of this deen I do in Arabic. I've never picked up any book in English that talks about anything in the deen of Allah. So all the translation I do from, not from the books that I read, but from, subhanAllah, knowledge of other things, alhamdulillah. But the kafara, the word will come to me, but we understand the meaning. So they said, as a kafara, we will fast 40 days instead of 30 days. So the Christians actually are supposed to fast 40 days in spring. But what did they start doing? You know what? What we'll do is just we won't drink water during the day. Oh, we will just not eat prunes. Oh, no oranges for 40 days. No meat for no chicken. Start messing with it, playing with it, and then they end up with what? How much do the Christians fast? How many days do the Christians fast every year? Nothing. 0. It's there in the books, but we don't do it anymore because it's too difficult. Now when they see a Muslim fasting, what do they say? You guys are crazy. How do you do it? You're gonna kill yourselves. You go make yourself sick. No water for 12 hours? You know. And so on and so forth. And you get dehydrated. It's not good. It's not good for you. This guy told me. In Ramadan I had the cold one day. See? I told you, see? That fasting is all that fasting that you're doing. You're going to kill yourself. SubhanAllah. And how ignorant is that? Medically speaking, when a person is sick, what is the first thing that happens? What is the first thing that happens, typically? You lose your appetite. It's a mechanism. Your body makes you lose your appetite. Why? Because your body spends 60 to 70% of its energy digesting, because we eat throughout the day, we snack, all of that. Your body wants to not have any food, so they will concentrate on fixing and healing and rejuvenating, all of that. SubhanAllah. So, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم صوموا تصحوا, fast and you will be healthy. فما أكذبهم وما أجهلهم. They're so ignorant, such an ignorant statement, subhanAllah. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give them hidayah, to give them guidance. So, كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. Now the third portion of this ayah that I want to tackle, inshallah Ta'ala, before we stop, inshallah, لعلكم تتقون. And this is wallahi so crucial. At-taqwa. We defined it so many times. But subhanAllah, the one most crucial thing that a believer should adhere to after saying La ilaha illallah is at-taqwa, the piety. Because the piety, at-taqwa, has to do with everything that we do. Do we observe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do we have the muraqabah, what they call the muraqabah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when in everything that we do on a daily basis? This is so crucial. So the biggest bounty, in my opinion, that you get from the month of Ramadan is that you attain at-taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that you will learn to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You learn to always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your mind, always have Allah ta'ala in your heart, and you always put that as a measure in everything that you do. Before you do any kind of step or any kind of deed, you observe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say, what would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala think about this? Would He be pleased with this or not? And you keep that as a measure. And this is wallahi a rule. At the end of Ramadan, if you find that you have not reached this particular degree in your iman, know for a fact that Ramadan was a failure for you. SubhanAllah. If you haven't reached that taqwa at the end, as a final result, that you get from fasting the month of Ramadan, then you have to reconsider and hope that Allah Ta'ala will make you reach another Ramadan so that you'll be able to reach that. So obviously Ramadan is not an opportunity for us to be hungry and be thirsty, but this is a tremendous opportunity to get closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and to be able to attain taqwa, attain piety. And we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to make us from al-muttaqeen. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to make us from the ones that fear Him Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and have that muraqabah at all time. Now we'll close with this particular hadith, which is a bushra, glad tidings from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Hadith Abi Hurairah, قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: إذا دخل شهر رمضان فتحت. شو الصيغة؟ مش فتحت، فتحت مبالغة، زيادة في المبنى، زيادة في المعنى. فتحت أبواب السماء، أبواب السماء، وفي رواية أبواب الجنان. وغلقت أبواب جهنم، وسلسلة الشياطين. وفي رواية مرضة الشياطين. When Ramadan, the month of Ramadan comes, the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Prophet said, when the month of Ramadan comes, the doors of the heavens, or in another riwayah, the doors of Al-Jannah are wide open, and the doors of Jahannam are closed, shut, and subhanAllah, the shayateen are chained up. Another narration, the maradah, the worst, the most evil of the shayateen are the ones that will be chained up. So this, the masters, the difficult ones, the ones that do the most damage, the most whispering, are chained up. So basically, Allah Ta'ala clears up the obstacles for you to do your work. He tells you, hey, Al-Jannah is wide open. If you die now while doing this in Ramadan, the door is open for you. The door of Jannah is open for you. If you die right now while doing this, doing what you're doing in Ramadan, there is no way you will enter Jahannam. And by the way, those enemies that you can't see, that know everything about you, that are always with you, they're always whispering to you, they're always pushing you towards evil, well, guess what? They're not there. We have cleared them and chained them up for you. Yarhamukallah. They've chained them up for you. So do your work. The obstacles are out of your way. Do the best that you possibly can. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us, inshallah, to do as much as we can in the month of Ramadan. We ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us, inshallah ta'ala, to fast and stand in qiyam and to coincide with Laylatul Qadr. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the ones that will be forgiven at the end of the month, inshallah ta'ala. Just to remind you again, inshallah ta'ala, from today on, instead of 2 lectures a week, we will have a small khatira after Isha. We will talk a little bit about the ahkam of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا. تفضل يا
So if the doors of Jannah are open in Ramadan, even if a person's a disbeliever, they'll still go to Jannah?
No way. A disbeliever, like I said, the one thing that makes a difference between your deeds meaning something, your deeds having value or having no value, is La ilaha illallah. Without saying La ilaha illallah, a person has no chance at a Jannah. حرمت. Allah Azza wa Jalla has made a Jannah forbidden on the ones that die as kuffar and the ones that die as mushrikeen. This is a rule. The ones that die not in the state of Islam, there is no chance. There is no chance. You have to understand something. And something a lot of people don't tend to realize or understand or know is the fact that al-hisab. What is al-hisab? Al-hisab is when people are going to stand in front of Allah Ta'ala and you will hold them accountable for their deeds. Al-hisab will take place for whom? For the ones that believe. For the ones that say La ilaha illallah. Because for the ones that did not say La ilaha illallah, there is no hisab. What's the reason? What are the proofs of that? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah Azza wa Jal will tell on the day of resurrection, the first thing that will take place, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَأُ صَفًّا صَفًّا, that the angels are standing in rows and rows, and Allah Ta'ala, in a manner that befits His majesty, comes to the land of resurrection. What does He say? Ya Adam, O Adam, فيقول آدم لبيك وسعديك والخير كله بين يديك أو في يديك. لبيك وسعديك. Labbaik, no, that means The big is the proper way of answering the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Adam, ib'ath ba'th an-nar. Extract from your sons, from your loins, from your offsprings, the ones that will go to Jahannam. And from them, as the Prophet ﷺ revealed to the Sahaba, from every 1,000, he will take 999 and they'll go straight to the hellfire. No questions asked, no accountability, nothing. What does that tell you? That, subhanAllah, the ones that come to Allah on the Day of Judgment, not having said and lived La ilaha illallah, they will have no chance. There will be no accountability. The accountability is for the believers. After they said La ilaha illallah, let's look at your deeds. Were they good enough? Do you have more hasanat than sayyi'at? Which one outweighs the other? Then you go further. But subhanAllah, a person that comes to Allah, not having believed fully, not having said La ilaha illallah, he stops right there. From the land of resurrection, when we come and stand, they're taken and thrown in the hellfire, nobody talks to them. There is no reason to. Does that answer your question? طبعا. This is another story. Of course, that's a good point. And of course, their punishment, just like the reward of the people of Al-Jannah, is different from one to another based on the deeds. Similarly, the punishment in Jahannam is based on the deeds after Al-Kufr. That's why there are four people that will have the worst punishment in the hellfire. Who are they? Who can tell? Can you tell? The mushrikeen. Four mushrikeen. Fir'aun, Haman, Qarun, Umayy ibn Khalaf. Umayy ibn Khalaf. Fir'aun, Haman, Qarun, Umayy ibn Khalaf. These four will have the worst punishment. These four people عياذ بالله في الدرك الأسفل من النار عياذ بالله. They will get the worst punishment. So, of course, obviously, it's a good question that the punishment is different from a person to a person based on their deeds, based on the deeds that they've done, while being a kafir, while being a mushrik والعياذ بالله. والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم. كيف كان؟ Yeah, well, he was كان من صناديق قريش. He was from the leaders of Quraysh. One of the ones that were, subhanAllah, the biggest enemies of the Prophet ﷺ. He's the one that owned Bilal, and he's the one that tortured Bilal, radiallahu anhu, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu bought Bilal from him and freed him. And subhanAllah, Allah Ta'ala speaks about him briefly in Surah Yasin. Who can tell me? Allah answers Umayy ibn Khalaf in Surah Yasin. Who can tell me the ayat? Who memorizes the Surah Yasin? من يحفظ سورة ياسين؟ وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه. Umayy ibn Khalaf came, he found a bone in one of the graveyards, the bone that was, let's say, almost reduced to dust. And he broke it in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, this Lord of yours that you claim, he will be able to resurrect this? And he's like, shaking the dust from the dust from his hands. Your Lord will be able to resurrect this, bring it back from the dead? Allah Azza wa Jalla answers, وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ. He struck a parable, an example for us, and he forgot about his own creation. قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. Said, who will be able to resurrect these bones after they became dust? قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. Then Allah says the one that has created it from scratch, created it in the first place, the one that he will be able to bring it back because he is all knowledgeable when it comes to creation. Whatever has to do with creation, Allah Ta'ala encompasses it with His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in a nutshell, this is Umayy ibn Khalaf, and he was killed in the battle of Badr. He was killed, he was from the ones killed, and he was trying to avoid going out for battle, but they kept pushing him until he was killed in the battle of Badr, subhanAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us with such people, in the company of such people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the ones, inshallah ta'ala, that when they hear the speech, they follow the best of it. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. جزاكم الله خير. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I want to share with you. You know, on the day of reckoning, people will come to Allah and they will have excuses. They will have excuses about what? Why they did not worship. Okay? So subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ has revealed to us, he said that the ones that come to Allah, and when they're asked why they didn't worship Allah, they say that they were a person that was a king, for example, and the kingdom was the reason, the dominion that they had, the responsibility that comes with that, was the reason they did not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, a person like that will find himself with Fir'aun in Jahannam al-'iyadhu billah. A person that comes to Allah and he did not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of his wizara, kana wazir, someone in the government, someone who is high up in the government, who has a responsibility. This is his excuse. He will find himself with the dark al-asfal. A person that comes to Allah because he was extremely wealthy and his wealth prevented him, because the wealth comes with a responsibility. To be wealthy, you have to be busy normally. His wealth prevented him from being a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will find himself with Qarun. And someone who is too busy with his tijara, commerce, trade, and his trade prevented him, made him too busy to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will find himself with Umayy ibn Khalaf. So I just wanted to add that to your information, that there will be no excuse when it comes to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as someone has the information, he has to worship Allah ta'ala, because no excuse will be valid on the day of reckoning. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.